you want me to start, Sophie?
Over to you.
Okay, fantastic. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, morning, evening, afternoon. Hope you're all well from wherever you're calling. My name is Deval. As you can see, I head up the Mayor's International Business Programme here at London & Partners, and I'm delighted to say today's session marks the 1-year anniversary of our Fintech Club. Just a bit of context, it was created to showcase London's fintech community, many of whom are members on our programme, and the wider global ecosystem. Plus, it's been our attempt to contribute to the ongoing discussions and narratives that is London FinTech. So a huge thanks to our delivery partners. You know who you are, but existing and former, particularly our delivery partners at Microsoft and at Lloyds Bank, who co-created the network 12 months ago. 12 months feels like 12 years ago, but it was 12 months. So thank you for all your help. Listen, we've hosted 6 sessions to date with over 750 attendees have dialed in. 66% have been C-level, head of, or founder. Partners and individuals that have joined us over the years supported the discussions have been myriad. We had, for example, Ron Khalifa and Charlotte Croswell join us recently, or a few months ago, to talk about the Khalifa Review. We've had Sherry Kutu, we've had Catherine McGuinness from the City of London Corporation. We've had folks from checkout.com, Fund Exchange, 11 Affairs, Clearco, OpenPaid, and certainly we've had folks from Level 39, Barclays Rise, and Innovate Finance, who are very much part of our stakeholder ecosystem, helping us support us. So, and many, many others, and long will that continue. Today's topic, which is very close to my heart, is centered on how fintechs and the wider FS sector are delivering support to SMEs. So let's get straight into it. First panel discussion will be talking about how fintech companies are transforming SME support. We all know the importance of the SME community to our economy and others around the world. According to our own Federation of Small Businesses, SMEs account for 3/5 of the employment and around half of turnover in the UK private sector. So joining me to discuss today is Gabriel Macsweeney, who's head of communications at Codat, Jasmine G, international partnerships manager at Libeo, Kaushalya Somasundaram, head of UK partnerships, payments partnerships and industry relations at Square. Welcome to you all. Just really quickly, can you share just a little bit more about your mission, very briefly, before we get into discussions, and how you support SMEs? Gabriel, maybe over to you first.
Sure. So yeah, I'm representing Codat, and Codat's mission is to make life easier for small businesses by enabling all the systems and services that they use to work together seamlessly. And unlike the other organisations on this panel, the way that we do that is not by serving the small businesses directly. We think we can maximise our impact for small businesses by serving those who are building products and services for SMEs. So we've built a universal API for small business data that enables SaaS companies and financial institutions to easily and quickly build integrated products for their small business customers. So to give you just a couple of examples, we work with Libeo on the panel here to power their integrations to accounting software that make it easier and quicker for their customers to pay suppliers and get paid. But we also work with financial institutions like American Express and Atom Bank when small businesses are applying for a loan. Instead of manually sharing their financial statements over email, they can share their data digitally in just a few clicks. So that's a quick intro to Codat.
Great, thank you, Gabriel. Kaushalya, over to you.
Thank you, and good afternoon, good evening, everyone. So Square was founded just over 12 years ago, really to help businesses accept card payments. And the way we got started actually was Jim McKelvey, one of our Square's co-founders, was struggling to accept payments, or at least card payments, to sell his glass-blown vases. It's a really interesting story. So what he did was to actually work with his friend, Jack Dorsey, to build the Square Reader, which many of you probably recognize us by, to help small businesses really to take payments from their phones. And this is where the purpose of economic empowerment, which is one of our key missions, started and still drives everything we do today. And if you fast forward to today, 12 years later, we've continued to grow with our sellers. And by sellers, I mean the businesses that we support and use Square by building tools really to help them run their businesses. We also support them to expand their customer reach as well, so across the various touch points. And that is done through the integrated Square software as well as their hardware solutions.
Thank you very much, Kaushalya. And over to you, Jasmine.
Hi, thank you. So I work at Libeo, and our mission is to make the back office as easy as possible for SME owners and finance directors by basically processing and digitizing invoices. And through, for example, integrations with Codat, we make it payments easier and faster, and so that they can have control over their finances. And essentially we provide integrations through accounting software, we have open banking and direct debit. So all of this combined makes a platform that basically saves time and allows SME owners and finance directors basically to develop their business and actually focus on what's important.
Great, thank you. And thank you to all three of you. Jasmine, let me stay with you. Question for you to kick things off. Listen, SMEs are, we know, essential to the UK and global economy, but many have been left behind by technological advancement, not to mention the pandemic. And many don't even have the right infrastructure in place to digitize their operations. How are you kind of helping them to overcome the barriers to kind of become more digitally enabled?
Funny that you should ask that, actually. So we've done quite a few things because Libeo actually, well, we bridge the gap for traditional businesses to kind of come into the digitalized world by processing these invoices, but we do it in 3 different ways. So education, emphasis on human aspects, and UX UI. So what I mean by, for example, education is webinars, podcasts, we participate in different events. And for example, during lockdown, we launched a weekly webinar with over 100 attendees per webinar. And the goal was to provide guidance and advice on how to deal with the situation and kind of protect your cash flow, for example. And on the human aspects, there's always an account manager that follows each of our clients, basically from sign up to usage to checkup calls, because we know how difficult it is to transform, first of all. And finally, UX UI is extremely important. If you go on our platform, it's really different from any other fintech kind of payment products, mainly because we try to make it as easy to use and friendly, so that we basically, through a lot of user research, feedback, we have adapted all of the most kind of it may seem mundane, but easy to use, like how you would know other programs to be. We try to adapt that so that you just kind of flow, and if you can use a website, you can use Libeo.
Fantastic. And I guess that educational piece is absolutely paramount.
Yeah.
And of course, it'd be kind of remiss of us not to kind of state that SMEs are a very, very diverse group. Your sole traders up to mid-size, often multinationals, and with all very different needs. Gabriel, over to you. Focusing a little bit more on the pandemic, it's obviously accelerated digitalization, changed consumer habits, a subject that's been talked about for quite some time now. How have you supported your clients through these difficult times at Codat?
Well, of course, our lens on this is not kind of directly to small business, but thinking about the providers and actually how the pandemic has, forced and accelerated their digitization. And one of the things that we really saw during the pandemic is that it forced larger institutions, and particularly the banks, to work at speeds and deliver things that were unimaginable 2 years ago. And at Codat, we were privileged to be able to work with one of the tier 1 banks in the UK, what we built is in 48 hours, we helped them build a loan application journey for the coronavirus business interruption loan scheme. And through that journey, customers were able to share their financial information digitally. And of course, you can imagine that the demand and the usage of things like that in April 2020 was huge, and actually for some businesses made the difference between their businesses surviving the pandemic and maybe not. I think the other big trend that we have seen, or one of the obvious ones, I guess, is the acceleration of e-commerce and digital payments. But maybe less talked about is the knock-on impacts of that, which means that now that so many businesses are using these digital sales tools like point of sale and e-commerce, that digital sales data becomes very valuable as something to build services on top of. So to give you an example, there's been a massive increase in revenue-based financing, and that digital sales data is becoming a very powerful asset that small businesses have to access finance, and particularly for those who have been formed out of the pandemic, that are newer businesses that wouldn't typically be eligible for credit from some of the traditional providers.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. Just moving the subject along a little bit, Kaushalya, I mean, of course, going back to before Square, you have a wealth of experience in FS and banking generally. And the context is you've all noticed, all three of you have noticed a major gap in the market when it comes to SME support. Otherwise, you wouldn't exist, arguably. You've created lots of products. But what was done before by the incumbents? What is the role of incumbents today, and perhaps a little bit about how Square is kind of, in many ways becoming the incumbents in your stickiness with your customers?
Thanks, Deval. So we recognized that there was an opportunity to make access to economy more accessible for anyone right from the start, as I mentioned earlier. So back in 2009, accepting card payments required one to enter into long-term contracts and typically entered, lengthy fee arrangements as well, and which wasn't really accessible to everyone looking to essentially start with an idea and turn that into a business, which is for most part, what people do today as well. And pandemic has definitely accelerated that. So Square recognized at that time, and we still do today, that there are lots of opportunities, as many of my panelists have also said, to really help businesses run their businesses, both in the online setting as well as in person, but in a more simpler and more accessible way. So we see any role of any organization, for that matter, providing the digital infrastructure for SMEs today as principally about helping business owners generate efficiencies when running their companies. So we know SMEs are time poor, and many are still, despite the digital evolution, are at very early stages of adoption, as we have sort of discussed before, right? They're wide ranging, and there are also some of them at very early stages. So we really need to provide infrastructure that is very simple to use and is also done in a sustainable way, so that as the SMEs evolve, these infrastructure also can cater for that evolution. And this can range from essentially like multiple things, right? So one thing we can do is support them with decision making. So by providing them with solutions such as cash flow visualization, forecasting, for example. We can also support them with business operations through items such as invoice generation, inventory management, and all the way to essentially supporting them legal requirements as well. And I think some of my colleagues also spoke about accounting integration, for example, is a good example of that.
Yeah, and if we've got time, we should perhaps talk about the unbundling of all those services and how that kind of plays in supporting that community. Gabriel, coming back to you, moving to digital, requires lots of SMEs or the SME community to think about new challenges that could arise. A lot of it's predicated on data management and security. Codat addresses this by support clients in handling these queries, particularly around security. Could you perhaps share more about this process, how you've built, that the underpinning, the trust with your customers?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right that it's something that when we talk to those who are providing services for small businesses, it's something that often comes up is, particularly people like banks in this instance. So they say, well, historically, we've always run this process, and my client has shared this information with me over email. If I move to doing that via a digital portal, are they going to have those concerns? Are they going to be willing to share that data with me? If they're not willing to share that data, then that obviously puts a real spanner in the work for the service that I'm trying to provide. But actually, we've just conducted a survey of 1,500 small businesses globally. And as an outcome of that survey is that 83% of those that answered considered that sharing data via a banking portal was more secure than sharing data, sharing information over email. So perhaps that is an area where we don't give small businesses enough credit for their kind of understanding of the security protocols and things like that. But I think one piece of advice that we do give to our clients in order to kind of maximize the success here is really all about transparency in that data sharing process. So being super clear on the specific data that customer is sharing, having great FAQs around why you need this data, what you're using it for, and of course always giving the small business the ability to retract access to that data when they need to. And I think that's really how to kind of address concerns around kind of security and sharing data.
Yeah, fantastic. And that's a staggeringly positive number, 83%, in terms of their trust and confidence in a banking portal. That bodes well for all of you. Jasmine, over to you around moving to different markets. You as a company, an organization, you're expanding into different markets. You're looking to switch on new offices. So you obviously understand the importance of thinking ahead and planning for international trade. What more can be done to support, do you think, SMEs through this process?
Actually, well, in fact, I mean, going through this myself and expanding into the UK right now, I can definitely say planning and forecasting is very important, but knowing where you stand is also very important. So for example, Libeo, because we are a payment platform, we can easily forecast your expenses, and that way you can avoid bad surprises on your cash flow kind of down the line, so that you can make better strategic decisions and keep control on your finances. But not only is that obviously building the base, but going forward, kind of putting especially going outside of the UK, actually, of course, foreign exchange is such a huge headache. I didn't expect it, but with all of the different fees, all of the different time, transferring and kind of setting up different bank accounts, for example, Libeo has incorporated that into our system, so that not only do you can link your bank in one country, you can link in another, for example, UK to France, and being exchanging through our integration with TransferWise, we offer to our clients the ability to have the same amount of commission basically in this way, so that they're not paying anything extra. It's really just a value add. And finally, localization. So obviously, when you're expanding into a different country, there are a lot of things that you take into consideration. Already the admin on the back, but as well, just the way people function is different, how they use things are different. And we try to incorporate that into our product, so that when our SMEs are ready to go international, in fact, in every country, it's kind of a little bit different and adapted to the market. And I think in this way, all three of these big points, it's how we support our SMEs kind of going through the international expansion.
Yeah, I mean, and we see this for our members all the time. And the things that you've just highlighted is what we pick up on a day-to-day basis. It sounds like you're definitely trying to solve a problem that many other members would be very, very interested in, not least the nuts and bolts, as I call it, of setting up in an office in a new market. Opening up a bank account is, yes, it's challenging.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, talk about challenging.
Yeah, absolutely. Kaushalya, since it was first created in 2009, Square has been on this uptick in terms of growth. You've built an entire business toolkit, hardware and software to support small to medium enterprises. Look, a little bit of future gazing. What would be the next step in helping them to digitize and automate their operations and customer engagement? What's next, do you think, on the horizon?
Yes, so from our perspective, we've seen a large shift in SMEs of all types actually looking to digitize either part or all of their businesses, particularly during the pandemic. And this was particularly prominent in certain sectors, such as beauty, food and drink, and retail in particular. So, for example, we saw that no businesses actually went cashless, and by cashless, I mean over 90% of the takings are being made by either card or non-cash forms of payments. And we also saw that SMEs are increasingly selling online through either social media, dedicated online store, or with also direct payment links to their customers. And so these two trends were very prevalent. And for Square, actually, our priority continues to be the same, which is really about helping SMEs to maximize their digital tools to enable them to run their businesses in a more efficient and easier fashion. And of course, when you're helping the sellers with these operational and customer engagement needs as well, we need to make sure that we offer additional tools beyond just payment processing. So as an example, we recently launched Square Marketing and Loyalty. Both are SaaS tools to help businesses re-engage with their customers. And as of last week, we also introduced the Photo Studio app, which is really interesting and a cool app, which allows our Square sellers to produce high quality product photography to include in their websites and various other forms. And of course, beyond our own tools, we also encourage and believe that it's important that the SMEs do have the choice to use the best in class and tools that are most relevant to them, really, and in whichever tech solution they prefer across their businesses.
Yes, I mean, we have a bit of time and there's some questions that have been posted, but let me just come back to you on that. And it'd be good to hear from the other two as well on the best in class solutions. I mean, there is well, we've got the best in class here on this panel, but we've got there's a bewildering array of solutions out there across the world that is there to, looking to support the small to medium enterprise. Partnerships is important, right? And we know that's important. Where do you think this is going in terms of SME support? Do you think there will be a convalescing of major players around the world where we'll have these kind of, super dashboards, super apps that will provide end-to-end solutions, or we will have sort of niched, deep diving solutions specific to each individual component of an SME's kind of growth? Hopefully that makes sense. Gabriel, I'm looking at you, you're nodding. So I think I was making some sort of coherence there.
Well, I think the way that we think about this at Codat is there's a kind of fight playing out to be that central source of truth for the small business. And, people like Square, I think particularly in the US, being at that first bit when people, start a business and being the way that they make payments and being the way that they kind of create a website and do e-commerce is a critical part of that is giving the traditional winners in that space, the accounting platforms, a real run for their money. But I think, the reason that that's playing out is because, the value that these players can offer is around that customer data and being kind of the not the owner, because a small business is the owner, but being able to use that to kind of make intelligent recommendations and help that business to succeed. But I still think that the way that they're kind of capitalizing on that is kind of creating this marketplace of services and being the kind of controller of that marketplace. And that's what certainly you've seen parties like Xero, that's really allowed them to succeed, and they're kind of now taking that to the next level. So I certainly think that, yes, there is that kind of competition that's playing out to be that central source of truth, but one of the reasons for that is so that they can play that central pivotal role with their partners and kind of be that generation, that kind of lead generation for all those partners that are also serving the kind of more niche needs of small businesses.
Yeah, I think, I'm a big fan of Zero. I think the Zero marketplace kind of epitomizes that one source of lots of great best-in-class tools, whilst also allowing those to be independent providers. Let me come into these questions. I'm trying to work out what John means here. What is the minimum time investment? What is the minimum time investment necessary to take advantage of these tools?
Maybe,
John, do you want to, Jasmine?
Maybe just how long it takes to set up and take advantage of actually what we're proposing, for example. Like,
yes. I was specifically thinking of what's the minimum size. We're talking about small companies, and I'm curious, was it a micro business that's going to be, or is it, you need 10 people or 50 people at a company before these tools are really worth the investment?
Yeah.
For at least at Libeo, for example, we cater to clients from basically one person to more than 200. So it really depends on how complicated it is to basically get all of your invoices onto our system. And because of integrations like with Codat, we're able to already extract it directly from your accounting tool so that there is no setup time, and you just literally select and then it just goes through because of integrations. So time investment is less. Yeah, it really depends on how much you want to spend just setting it up the normal sense. But otherwise, if I understood the question correctly, otherwise it's more about how do we go forward, because I think it's more the step of the person wanting to actually use the product. So for example, once they know that there is a Zero integration, then the invoices come over, but then to actually go to the next step of paying, that is more just a mindset. And that's when we bring the human into the equation to kind of bridge that transformation.
Great. Kaushalya, do you want to come in here perhaps? I mean, you've got such a wide range of customers, right? I mean, one of the things that occurs to me, and John's trying to clarify the question here, one of the things that occurs to me is, you've got owners of high growth firms who are digitally literate. And so they from day one, they'll be looking to onboard your products. Whereas you've got others, perhaps in the majority, who are still trying to understand what is the right product for them at a particular time in their cycle.
Sorry, absolutely. I mean, I think the key or important thing to remember is that it's not a one-size-fits-all solution, by virtue of the fact that it is a very, very diverse distribution of, I guess, in our case, the sellers, as we call them, right? Starting from the micro businesses all the way to some of the larger upmarket sellers. So I think that's one thing to recognize. It is really ultimately is about providing, I go back to the previous point about it is about providing the sellers a choice. There's an element of obviously education that's involved, because sometimes, folks don't know exactly what's available until they've kind of figured it out, or there's a particular need. So I think that's really important. And I think there's a lot of initiatives that are happening at the industry level to bring people together to provide and offer that solution. And the second part of it, I guess, is really about, I think it's a responsibility of all of us, is to make sure that we have a really good ease of integration with all of the third parties, the possible partnerships that we can forge, right? It goes back to, again, the point, I think, again, Gabby and Jasmine had mentioned in terms of the importance and the criticality of partnerships. And for example, to this effect, like if you look at Square, we continue to integrate with tools, particularly around also Square point of sales, to help SMEs across areas such as accounting, tax, e-commerce, inventory management, and very many more. So I think that's the other part of it, is like when you look at the when you look at the seller base or merchant base, A, their needs vary. B, that that the solutions are also may necessarily not be one size fits all, even when the needs are much the same. And then offering the opportunity and the ability to be able to integrate easily. I think these are going to be the critical parts of it.
Right, thank you. Gabriel, do you want to add your thoughts here?
I guess one thing I would say, John, I think you mentioned that these things are not their expertise, but I think the payments aspect of a business is kind of fundamental to any business, really. And it's usually one of those like painful things that they actually don't want to be focused on, but like takes up an annoying time. And one of the things that I certainly think that we've seen is that actually today, if you're starting a business and you're doing that as a kind of digital native, it's actually the first thing you think about when creating a business. If you're a sole trader, you're thinking about your website, you're thinking about how you're going to take payment. And so, yeah, actually, it's kind of just one of those operational fundamentals that yeah, we see kind of being adopted like really, really early on in a business's life cycle.
Yeah, and that simplicity of use, I think someone mentioned, if it's simple to use whilst also trustworthy and predicated on security, I think it will be adopted, which speaks to all of your strengths across the panel. Listen, I'm probably going to wrap it up. I'm very conscious that Kaushalya has got a hard stopper soon as well. I want to keep the powder dry on the Khalifa reports, unless anyone on the panel wants to speak to that. We will probably be asking Ron Khalifa to join us at the next session, if not the one after that, to kind of report into the community as to where we're at with the review. So let's come back to you on that, Dan, if that's all right, or happy to talk to you offline. Listen, I just want to say a huge thank you to Gabriel, to Jasmine, Kaushalya. Thank you for sharing your insights and your thoughts as well. Do stay on if you can for the next session and thereafter. But thank you again, and let me hand over to my colleague Morizina, who's going to be talking now about all things insurtech, which I think is a nice segue and a link between what we've discussed, but in the specific area. And over to you, Morizina.
Thank you, Deval. It's a pleasure to be here with you all. I work with small businesses, and it's very insightful to hear about all of the solutions that have been presented by all of the companies in the panel and all this, and the discussion, and also hearing about the problems that I hear my clients talking about. But as we are moving on to the insurtech sector, I'm here and delighted to welcome a brilliant panel who will then be discussing what the insurtech sector is actually doing to support SMEs. And we have here with us Alex Wheal, who is the commercial client manager for Hiscox, Stephen Wares, who is the head of risk engineering Europe for Coalition, and Tim Hardcastle, CEO and co-founder at Instanda. So to start off the conversation, could I please ask you to introduce yourselves and briefly talk about your company? Perhaps I'm going to start, Alex, if you would like to go first, please.
Yeah, no problem. Hiscox is a global niche insurer. So we pick the insurances that we want to provide. And we do that globally. One of those niches is SME insurance. I'm aligned to our UK partnerships team. So I'm looking at UK SMEs, in which case we insure over 300,000 of them here in the UK. I'm an underwriter by training, but I also launched our first commercial title agency in the UK a few years ago, and now focus my time on embedding our core products and services within third-party software that is non-insurance broker related, like a cloud accounting platforms or banking platforms, but using the data that's already within them to help us distribute our products. So much of the stuff that's been alluded to in the previous conversation, same type of idea. How do we use data from within those platforms to kind of fulfill the needs of customers when it comes to SME insurance?
Brilliant, thank you. And we are going to touch on the role of brokers later on. Perhaps you will have some insights for us on that. But
well, I think we'll all have something interesting to say about it. All
yeah,
positive. It's all positive.
Yeah. So let me move on to Stephen now. Steve, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, hi, I'm Stephen Wares. I'm head of risk engineering, otherwise known as underwriting, for Coalition in Europe. So Coalition were established in 2017, and we have a mission of trying to solve cyber risk, so no lack of ambition there. But for us, that doesn't mean eliminating security failures. That means trying to help companies survive them. So we started trading in 2018. So we've been trading around 3.5 years. We've got circa 300 million in premium run rate, and that puts us as one of the largest cyber insurance providers in our segments, and certainly by far the fastest growing. So we're around 260 people in size now, spread across the world. About half of that is software engineers, product managers, security analysts, etc. So we are natively a technology company that does insurance. We've got around 30,000 customers who've bought their cyber insurance policy from us now. And we're looking to bring that proposition over to the UK and European markets. We're currently serving the USA and Canada, looking to bring that to UK and European markets with a UK launch expected early next year.
Wonderful. Sounds brilliant. Tim, I'll move over to you now.
Yes, hi everyone. Tim Harcastle, I'm the CEO and co-founder of Instanda. Instanda is a platform that enables insurers like Hiscox, and yes, I can declare an interest. We are working with Hiscox in Europe, but companies like Hiscox and MGAs to deliver amazing propositions to the SME market. And we cover both property and casualty as well as the life and health segment. So that is a very wide range of SMEs that are interested in getting protection, peace of mind, and business critical cover. We work across. We're fortunate to work with some amazing companies, including Hiscox, obviously, but we work in many countries. We're about 12 countries now. Nowhere near the number of volume that Alex and Stephen can talk about, because we enable the MJs and insurers. So we've got about 65, probably 70 soon, companies that work with us in 12 countries, covering all P&C and life and health propositions. And it's a very exciting time for them and for us, because the demand, I think, as you highlighted, is growing, and people want products and they want cover and they want things very easily delivered to them. And that creates a lot of demand for new ways of making insurance interesting, exciting, and much more relevant. And our platform enables all of that to happen. So we're very happy with how things are going, and lots to talk about on this session.
Sounds amazing. So it is. I can see that all of you have a different solution, but still, we understand that the SME market has traditionally been underserved, and that there is still a huge potential in developing more insurance products that could be tailored for that segment. And I would like to hear from all of you. How do you think insurtech companies are actually stepping up to the challenge and digitalizing or democratizing or perhaps simplifying access to insurance to these SMEs? Stephen, I'll start with you now.
So it's a great question for our segment of insurance. So cyber insurance, there's never been higher demand for cyber insurance than there is now, for some very obvious reasons. And at the same time, there's perhaps never been less appetite from the insurance market. So whilst the insurance market are pulling back a little bit and being a little more reserved when it comes to providing cyber insurance, the demand has never been higher. And that is particularly true of the SME sector. If we go back 4 or 5 years, the hacking groups were perhaps more interested in large corporate businesses. They were big whale hunting, but with the recent rise of ransomware and sort of social engineering fraud, the smaller businesses are very much in target. So in terms of driving access to that type of insurance, we've mainly done that through the broker channels. We have the partnership channels as well. So we partner with various different security companies, technology companies, Intuit QuickBooks, for example, to distribute our product via those platforms. But really, this is a complex insurance where clients value the advice that they get from their insurance brokers. And so it is mainly a broker play for this particular class of insurance. So we've worked hard on producing a broker portal that they can access in a very frictionless way cyber insurance for their SME customers and to automate as much of the underwriting as we possibly can so that those quotations can be generated in minutes rather than having to fill in applications and wait days or weeks for an underwriter to come back to you with a quotation. So they can do that very quickly on our online portal. They have their own dashboards where they can pick up those quotes, where they can pick up those policies, and where we can deliver the renewal quotes without them having to ask for it 60 days in advance. So speed of quoting and giving them access through that broker portal has been key for us.
Alex, are you doing anything that you believe would be adding to what you already have mentioning about products that is in the market?
Sorry, what do you mean?
Sorry, Alex.
Oh, Alex.
Just
sorry.
moving on to Alex with the same question as to what you think how insurtechs could be stepping up to the challenge of new products to SMEs.
So I think what Stephen has just mentioned there is a really clear use case of a product line that can be bettered by having access and aggregating data and making that one version of the truth that everyone can access, and you've got data points that the customers don't have to infill or revisit the whole time. It's making the whole process easier and smoother and simpler. I think when you apply that to SME more broadly, this is where the challenge, and this is where insurtechs can really kind of grab the bull by the horn, because SME is a big definition, right? That goes from micro businesses, one-person companies, all the way up to sort of quite large businesses, and of varying degrees of industries and varying degrees of risks and where they're working and international nature of it all. So actually SME covers a huge amount. I think we've seen it in cyber, but we've also seen it in motor insurance, fleet insurance, drone insurance, bike insurance, more sort of on the consumer side, like mobile phone insurance, product warranty, travel insurance. All these are kind of like advancements in singular lines of business. And what I'm really looking forward to, and what we're trying to do a bit at Hiscox, is there needs to be a way of bringing this all under one roof, finding a way of helping an SME manage all of the different risks they've got, not just one line. How is that going to work? And I think, for me, that's the distribution of that comes through some of those ecosystems that Deval was talking about previously, and understanding who's going to be the orchestrator of these ecosystems for SMEs and trying to work out how we fit into that position. But as we as an insurer are trying to figure that out, I think there are insurtechs also out there trying to figure that out as well, and they can move a lot quicker than us, generally speaking, right? So it's a case of trying to work out how all this stuff fits together. But there's numerous examples of insurtechs in the UK that have done amazing things in those different lines of business we talked about. I think the challenge now is how do we widen the scope of that for SME?
That's a very good question. And perhaps I will then move on slightly, because Tim, your software supports businesses to simplify the creation and management of insurance solutions by digitalizing the whole process. So how has your product then been received by the market, and how are you adapting it to the breadth of SMEs, to the SME sector? You know, as Alex was saying, SME is just a huge concept, and there's lots of different sizes of companies within that pool of companies. So how is that working for you?
I think building on Alex's point, we for one of our clients, we built an SME offering which covered 7 to 11 products, and it covered life, health, and property and casualty. It was built within 12 weeks. It included finance integration to their systems, which because this was running across life, health, and property and casualty, they had to take the money separately because of obviously regulatory reasons and where the balance sheets sit. So anyway, that was all delivered, and I think that it was a reflection. It was meeting a need because they had surveyed the SME market, and building on the points discussed earlier, the SMEs don't want to have to shop around for business cover that is essential. So whether it's cyber, whether it's the D&O, whether it's the typical classic business covers at the moment, and as an SME ourselves, we have to go through 3 or 4 different insurers to get, frankly, what is a basket of things that it would be nice. But the industry is not organized and set up for that kind of composite solution. There are very few carriers. So I think what I would say is that what's happened in the last 3 or 4 years is rather like insurance itself, the insurtech community, of which we're one. Well, sometimes we get called it and sometimes we don't. I don't know quite where we sit, but what we have done is bring a level of trust, confidence, and belief in the technology that it is able to deliver a frictionless experience. It's able to bring multiple products to a market that can be delivered via an app. It can be delivered via a broker. It can be delivered, in the traditional way through a website. I think the challenge, and back to Alex's point, is how do you then aggregate underneath to bring that very personalized, frictionless experience when you've got monoline or insurers that don't offer cover in those areas. And I think that's the bit of challenge that we're now facing. And the way we're addressing it is we're basically building the proposition to say this is what SMEs really want, and we're in discussions with another number of carriers to offer them this as a go-to-market proposition. And I'll be knocking on Alex's door shortly to see if he's interested in doing that.
There you go. You've been hooked, Alex. So, but I'm going to just go one step back and pick up on a point that you mentioned. It's cybersecurity is a huge issue for SMEs. In my experience, when I speak to especially the very small companies, and you mentioned cybersecurity, that's the last thing that they have in mind. But Stephen, you are launching an offer in the UK specifically for SMEs, providing them with free security tools, and sometimes, in the experience that I have working with the companies I've been working, even when it's free of charge, you still have to convince them to do it, to take it seriously. So can you talk us through that in more detail, about your solution and how you think this will democratize access to insurance for SMEs, and also how can we then increase the take-up by SMEs to a product that they perceive as perhaps something that they can leave for a later date?
I think the idea they can leave it to a later date is rapidly diminishing. So, for us, it's about increasing the access to cyber insurance, but it is also about increasing the access to valuable security tools. For us, we're working hard to drive that through our automated scanning and monitoring technology. And for us, that means collecting a vast amount of data. So we're collecting data on every single corporate entity, every single computer system that's connected to the global public internet. We're monitoring and indexing upwards of circa 9 billion computer systems and collating them to companies. So the amount of data, the depth of data that we have to assess risk is just immeasurably better than the vast majority of insurers that have been practicing in this space up until this point in time. So often that means we know a huge amount more about our customers than they actually know about themselves, which gives us a tremendous advantage. So with that data, we're able to do quite a number of things. So I guess the first thing is that we're able to reduce friction at the point of sale. So armed with all of that data, it means that we don't have to burden the broker with lengthy application forms because we already have a lot of that information ourselves. So by the time they've typed in basic company profile information, we've run our scan on their domains and we've discovered an immense amount of information about the company that they then don't have to input. So it reduces the friction, that's for sure. It improves the underwriting. So obviously we're able to create better links between the technology that we observe, so the applicant's technology, their security profile, and how much we charge and what terms we apply for the insurance. So we can price discriminate based on our knowledge of the client's tech stack, the degree to which we observe vulnerabilities, the degree to which we observe good or lax security practices. And I think that just drives a fairer outcome for those clients. So it's always been a challenge for insurers to recognize good or poor practice in security and fairly reward companies that are using more secure technology or have better practices. And we're genuinely able to do that through the data we're collecting. And then perhaps the most important thing or the most differentiating thing that we're able to do is provide the client with a free attack surface monitoring platform. So that continuously monitors the client's network throughout the policy term, and it notifies them and their broker should there be a critical vulnerability observed that could pose an immediate threat to them. So we are doing that. We are emailing the client directly, we're emailing the broker, and we're telling them if we've observed a critical vulnerability that could pose an immediate threat, and we will repeat that. We will continuously send those notifications until that has been fixed. But the client can go onto their own security dashboard, they can pull down reports, they can share that information within the company, and they can monitor their own security status. And this is a valuable technology. This is something that if the client were to go out and try to procure on their own, it would cost them many thousands of dollars every year to get that. And so this is a tool that is of genuine value that we are driving into the hands of the SMEs who probably would not have the budget to ordinarily go out and be able to afford to buy that. So I guess we're this improved observation at the point of underwriting throughout the lifespan of the policy, the evidence that makes a difference is in our claims frequency, and that's about 1/3 of the market average. So not only is that great for us, but of course the clients never want to have a claim in the first place. They don't want to be hacked, and they don't want to have their business taken down or their data lost. So if we can drive out those claims, then we're delivering a benefit to the end client. Not only usually you have to wait until you have a claim to get a benefit from an insurance policy, but actually we're giving them benefit throughout the lifespan of that policy by trying to drive claims out or incidents out and reduce the claim frequency.
Yeah, then absolutely, by making it easier, I believe the take-up would definitely go up. But picking up on the point that you made, Stephen, I'll move on to Alex, picking up on the point that you made about data. And aggregating data, collating data. This is something that usually we know large companies can do very easily, not so necessarily so easily for smaller insurtech companies. And as insurance incumbents have had to adapt to a rapidly developing insurtech sector, Alex, how has Hiscox dealt with this, and how have you been innovating to make sure that you are also a major player being considered for the small business by these small businesses?
Yeah, so this is the battle I try and have internally, right? Which is we need to be doing more, moving faster, and I'll speak internally. And a lot of it will be not a huge amount has changed, right, from what it was 5 years ago in regards to distribution, what it is today. Now, we think a lot's going to change. We think you can see movements of that happening, but still there's a lot of things that are similar today as they were 5-10 years ago in the way that insurance is distributed. Now, I believe, yeah, that the future of that distribution is going to happen. It's going to focus around those ecosystems. So, what bets can we make in this space to start seeing whether that's going to be, whether we can realize some of that? So for me, it was more around how do we access the customer? How do we get hold of the customer? We have a whole broking division arm, similar to what Stephen has just been talking about, that's going to deal with the brokers, and the products are going to match up to the brokers. But in our sort of direct customer arm, like how are we going to help those micro businesses, those sub 10 people businesses? How can we better support them than being reactive as to someone just looking for insurance? So for me, that's kind of serving insurance at a time of need. So when customers are doing something and they realize something's happening in their business, that could be that they just hired their first employee, or just taking their first income, or just set up abroad. But when something's happened, when a change is happening in their business, understanding that the risks to their business have changed, and actually there's certain insurance products that can help them manage that. And the best way to kind of access that is potentially through these ecosystems like cloud accounting or banks or other like e-commerce partners or other sort of ecosystems where they're that piece of software is an engine for that business and how they run their business. It's something they're in every day, helping them run their business. So one of the bets we've taken is on cloud accounting. So we did a partnership with Free Agent. So 100,000 contractors and micro SMEs in the UK. We built an integration directly into their software, which meant that through the customer choosing to connect it, all the data they hold within that cloud accounting software could be used as data points for obtaining a quotation from us, which allowed us to give sort of guide prices to customers in seconds, allows them to get a quote in sort of a minute in order to go and get a policy. Then that policy is then stored within their cloud accounting software. No more trying to find your documents. It's already in that central place. And then in the future, where we see that going is well, what we want to be able to do is provide nudges to that customer when things are changing. So when their turnover is going up rapidly, or their payroll is going up rapidly, or their risk is changing in their business, because we can see it from their cloud accounting and third-party data points, we can give them nudges saying, this is how you potentially need to manage the changing risk to your business. So potentially add this cover, adjust this cover, amend this, speak to someone about X, Y, and Z as a result of the information that we're seeing. So that's kind of the bet. One of the bets we're making is in a similar way to what Stephen was talking about with cyber, like how we get using data points to kind of understand the customer better, to be more used to them prior to an actual claim happening. But I suppose my focus is more on general insurance, but for a micro business, for the vast majority of people that are running businesses in the UK, like how can we support them in their day-to-day, make it easier and more straightforward to work. But I do admit we do need to take many bets, right? This is just one solution, but there are many bets that we could be taking. So the more insurtechs are out, the more insurtechs that are out there coming up with solutions or potential solutions for this type of thing, the better it is for everybody.
Mm-hmm. And so all of you have mentioned the role of the broker, and brokers play an important role in the insurance market today. Do you envisage that there will be a change as the industry innovates to this role? And if there is going to be a change, what that's going to look like? And I would like to hear from all of you if you get a take on that.
That is a really old chestnut.
Let's try and break it now.
Let me give you a modern old version just to talk about it specifically. So I think there's tremendous opportunities for the insurance sector. I mean, we've got a client, just to give you one anecdotal story in the UK. So we've got a client that was with us 4 years ago. It serves the SME market. It goes out via broker. It's grown from 30 million to 50 million GWP in that period. Its plans now, it's part of admittedly a slightly larger group, but to digitize and grow to 500 million in the next 5 years, right? Now you put that against the backdrop of the growth trajectory that most companies would see. And then why have they been able to achieve that? They've been able to achieve it because they've recognized that the broker delivery distribution model is really helpful, because they serve a segment of the SME market which has got very diverse needs. I mean, for example, one segment they look at is the farming agricultural community, and you can have, an ice cream business inside of farmers, as well as some commercial vehicles, as well as some private vehicles. So every single policy has got a mixture of different covers, different rates, etc. So the way they've been able to tap into that is by behaving like a retail organization in terms of delivering a very personalized, relevant and attractively priced product via the broker, because the broker's communication with them is almost real time, and they've been able to use our platform to make some of those changes without compromising the risk take on that the underwriters believe they've been having too much exposure. And they've been able to do all of that with literally only 2 underwriters. So we've got a beautiful, efficient, high growth opportunity within SME market. And there are masses of opportunities like this, aside from all the things that Stephen's talking about, where he's right, cyber is one of the biggest risks that any SME faces. So the education and awareness of the importance of that is paramount. So I mean, I'm just super excited about what's possible. I think to Alex's point, he just needs to make a number more bets. We're going to be one of them, because we're going to come and talk to you about the proposition. And I think this is the great thing. I mean, Hiscox are one of many that we work with that are more progressive and recognize the different routes, but no one yet has pieced it all together. There's no silver bullet. It's about manipulating the data that's available in the way Stephen's talked about, and creating much better, easier to gain holistic experience, personalized offers that the SME market really needs. And it's a really vastly untapped segment in the UK alone, let alone globally. So that we should be falling over ourselves to go and really service that market much more effectively than is happening right now.
Yes, so it sounds that you are really on to crack that hard nut there, Tim, which is brilliant. I would like to carry on the conversation and go around and have everyone's take, but I'm very conscious that we are running out of time now, and there is one question from the audience that I would like to, perhaps for one of you to address, and it's from Leonard Anderson. He's asking, do you envisage payment systems and insurtech adopting payments from and to cryptocurrency wallets? Would anyone like to take that?
Well, we've had a discussion about digital wallets for many years, and we've got some of our clients operating with that model, but why not? I mean, I think there's still some way to go. You know, when people are investing in crypto, how do you actually realize it without selling your crypto holding? There's companies that are actually giving you loans now against your crypto holding, so you can monetize your crypto holding without actually having to sell it. And so there is a currency trigger or a monetary trigger from crypto. But whether we would see trading in crypto, I guess if Elon Musk and Tesla can do it, then why not? Why shouldn't the insurance industry follow suit? Well, let's see.
Alex, Stephen, any take on that?
An uneducated take on it would be, I imagine the insurance industry would just follow the wider industry here. So I don't think the insurance industry is suddenly going to be the one that's leading the charge on accepting crypto for payment as on policies, but who knows, I might be wrong on this. I imagine it would be, it's already readily accepted by lots of other industries, so therefore we'll follow suit and it will just adopt, I would have thought.
I think the insurance industry has a unique challenge in that we're not immediately selling a product. We have to take in that currency on today, and then we may pay out in several years' time. So the volatility of cryptocurrencies is a challenge in that respect. So in terms of reserving, which may occur over years or even decades.
Brilliant. So thank you so much, Leonard. I hope your question has been answered. I would love to carry on and have more questions and even bring the audience in, but we've run out of time. So I'm going to stop here. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Stephen, for joining us. I'll hand it back to Val now. See you later.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you very much, Morozina, and thanks to Alex, Stephen, and Tim. It's a fascinating industry. Highly complex, of course, but I think, certainly what I've been picking up is speed, simplicity, trust, security, and robust data is underpinning your propositions. I've heard frictionless mentioned quite a few times this afternoon, or should I say effortless, but that includes the distribution channels. So I look forward to hearing more about how the industry develops. Certainly looking forward to my conversations again with Alex when I meet up with him next. So thank you for your time, chats, and Morozina, thank you as well. Just also worth kind of pointing out, certainly with the previous panelists, and I'm sure with this one as well, many of them have published reports, right, and papers on their respective areas of expertise. Well, hopefully we can share those reports and papers with the group through our channels and newsletters. So do keep a lookout for that, because they make for some interesting reading. Listen, very conscious of time. Just what next for the Fintech Club? Look, we'll keep plowing on. We'll keep doing what we're doing. We're doing it because you guys come and dial in and contribute to the discussions. Hopefully they are relevant and they land well. Someone, as I mentioned earlier, we are talking to Ron Khalifa. We're asking Ron to join us. Oh, by the way, a feedback poll has just come up, so do kind of share your feedback. So we're going to ask Ron to come back and kind of give us an indication of where he's at with his review and talking to folks at Whitehall about policy recommendations. There'll be lots of topics, lots of areas that we're going to roll out next year, not least fintech in the Middle East. It's something that we're going to roll out in Q4 next year, and that's related to a fintech trade mission that we're leading on to Dubai and Abu Dhabi in February. So lots of things that are going to fall out of that. And hopefully some more in-person. We've been doing this virtually for quite some time now, and it works. But hopefully through our friends at Barclays Rise, Level 39, others, our office is now open, so you're very welcome. We'll arrange some more in-person meetups and run these conversations and discussions face-to-face. So that's probably a wrap from me. I do appreciate your time and know you're very, very busy. Thank you again to all our panelists, and also thank you to those who have dialed in and listened in and sharing your questions. So here's the next one. Keep a lookout for the next one. And if you have any ideas for topics as well, do share with us. We want this to be a community-led kind of discussion point. So have a good week, the rest of the week, and hopefully see you soon.
Thanks, Val.
Thanks, everyone. Cheers, Alex.
Thanks, Val.